Good morning, everybody. I hope that you guys are doing well. I am very excited to get started on this topic, and boy, do I know this topic well. I want to encourage everyone before we get going. I think it would be great if you guys get a chance to go on your favorite social media platforms and follow us, subscribe, and be sure to share this webinar once we get it uploaded to YouTube. So I think this is a very important message that all moms need to hear. And I don't care what phase of motherhood you're in, whether you're a new mom or you're managing teens or your kids are grown and out the door. It's so important that we are dealing with mom guilt. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I have 5 adult children and I have 2 stepsons. So we have a grand total of 7 children between my husband and I. And on top of that, we've got 3 grandchildren as well. And it makes for a very unique situation in terms of managing a joint household. Even though the kids are out of the house, you still have the dynamics of managing adult relationships. And certainly as a mother, I have gone through the ups and downs of being a single mom and being married and going through divorce and the nonsense that goes with that. And I've dealt with estrangement from adult children. I've had great relationships at times, and sometimes I've not had great relationships. Sometimes I've been the best mom that I could ever be. And there's been times when I have not been at my best. And with that, I think inherently, we as moms, the minute we give birth, we are running around with this heavy burden of guilt. So I want to share with you what I've learned. And here's what's important. If you're an entrepreneur and you are a woman and you are a mother, the weight of the world can really bear down on you. And that's why we started the 360 Entrepreneur, is to really help you focus on each aspect of your life without feeling this sense that you've got to be perfect in every area. We're going to rotate in and out of different areas of our life, whether it's our spouse, whether it's being a boss, whether it's managing clients, whether it's managing motherhood or being a grandparent or being a community leader or volunteer. We are always taking a 360 preview of our life and focusing on those areas with strong intent. And it's not meant to achieve perfectionism. It's meant to achieve this will in our soul to be the best that we can be and put the guilt aside. So let's get started. Let's talk about mom guilt and what it is. And boy, isn't it this pervasive feeling that you are failing in some way? You might feel that you've got this anxiety about how your kids are coming out into this world and, all of the distractions around them and making sure they're solely protected. You might worry that you have made some mistakes along the way and that when they grow up, they're going to resent you or they're going to need therapy to overcome their childhood. Another symptom of mom guilt is maybe you didn't have a mom that could really guide you. So you feel like you're kind of making decisions on your own and you're trying to feel out this role of motherhood completely on your own. Or maybe you're living with this thought of, I never want my kids to grow up in the environment that I grew up in. So you are working against that struggle of trying not to recreate your own childhood. And so the most important key here, though, is that we're going to learn how to move forward from here on out and not be looking at the past and hanging on to it and punishing ourselves over and over again. Remember, we cannot look at the past in that mindset. We have to look at the past as a learning event so that we understand why we are where we are at right now in the present, so that we can make good future decisions. Okay. And so let's just talk about some of the things that we feel guilty about. I mean, from the smallest things, like we feel bad if we're not cooking these wholesome organic meals, if we're not spending enough time with our kids, if we're not playing with them, or when we're playing with them, maybe we don't feel like we even really want to be there. Or if we get angry or impatient with them, if we're saying the wrong thing, if we're not putting them in private school, or if we're not homeschooling them, or if we're not as involved in school, we might feel guilty about that. And if we are not protecting them from their own selves and their own bad decisions, we can feel guilty about that. And we might worry that we are being too much like our parents, and, we're falling into that trap of not really honoring who we are as a parent. We're so consumed with how our parents raised us that we can't even be true to ourselves. Or maybe we don't feel good about the fact that we hired a nanny, or that we hired somebody to clean the house, that we as women are supposed to handle everything. We are supposed to look great. We're supposed to cook well. We're supposed to keep the house clean. Our kids are supposed to never hate us. Our kids are supposed to love us unconditionally. And by the way, we're supposed to be high achievers in our career and great community leaders. This is all false perception. And we end up making mistakes. And then what do? We feel guilty because we made mistakes. It's like we're in this no-win situation. And so there's lots of reasons why we can feel guilty. And maybe there is a few reasons why we are prone to holding on to that guilt, even when we are doing our best. And one of the top reasons could be very high expectations of mom. We have the most incredible role in this world, and that is raising our children, or raising little human beings. And those human beings go out in the world and they participate in society and they make their own impact. And when you become a grandparent, you realize that your children are impacting your grandchildren. And you really see it very clearly when you become a grandparent as well, about how your own parenting provided the instruments and the tools that they need to raise your grandchildren. And you might wonder, did I do a good enough job? Am I okay? And I would say that perfectionism is something that I talk about quite a bit. And there's a great webinar that I did on perfectionism. I know that horrible, horrible feeling of perfectionism, because I would say that for a long time I was a perfectionist, which that's all an illusion, right? As well, because we're not perfect whatsoever, but we strive for perfectionism to the point of isolating our own self and our own feelings. And you can't do that as a mother. As a mother, we need to be fully present. And when we are so concerned with perfectionism, we are actually turning our eyes inward towards ourselves instead of outward towards our children and their needs. We're so consumed with beating ourselves up and punishing our own self that we can't get clear-minded and take some pressure off of ourselves to just relax and be present with our children. So that burden, obviously, for high expectations for moms, it's fulfilled with society putting that burden on us. And now we got social media that amplifies the perfectionism that people are striving for, whether it's a perfect house, or it is dressing well or looking fit. Everybody shows their best selves on social media, right? And so it's easy to compare ourselves in that aspect. But I would say that more importantly, we put the burden on ourselves. And that's something that we have to shift, because we're not fortune tellers, right? We can feel guilty about the decisions that we're making right now, but even the children that have good enough parenting, you've heard me use that term before, if you've watched any of my past webinars, even if you are the best parent and showing up, there are no guarantees that your children are going to walk into this world and not have something happen to them or allow them to become something that you did not raise them to be. So it's really important that we let that go, that high expectation go. We relax a little bit and get into the presence of really enjoying this relationship with this beautiful creature that we're responsible for, or creatures that we're responsible for, and realize we don't know everything, right? We are human beings living a human experience. And if you would never tell your child, you're bad for making a mistake, you're a horrible person if you do this wrong, if you would never tell your child that, then why are you doing that to yourself? Because how you treat yourself is going to appear to your child, and they're going to do that to their own self. More importantly, if you're bad to yourself, I promise you, your children will think, something's off, and I need to disrespect my mom too. My mom doesn't like herself, then why should I like her? And I know that's in a very layman terms or simple language, but there is psychology in you are treated how you treat yourself. We talk about that in terms of relationships with dating or your spouse or your partner. If you have low self-esteem and you're not confident in yourself, then you allow others to treat you that way. And children can sniff out weakness. They really can. And I speak from personal experience. The minute I started having self-respect for myself and creating boundaries for myself, then there was a level of respect that I started to see with my children. When I didn't, and I felt insecure and I felt very needy of their love and fearful of losing their love and operating in modes of fear, it was easy for them to whip me around, making me feel bad about past mistakes. And that's not something that you want to live with. That's not a life that you want to have. So just remember, nobody hands us, right, this book that says, when your child says this, do this. When your child does this, say this. There's no handbook in the world that can ever teach us how to be the perfect parent, right? And so when you let go of expectations, when you realize you don't know everything and you're going to make some mistakes and that you can't see into the future, that you're just going to honestly do the best job humanly possible on the face of this earth, then you have to kind of let the rest take its own toll. And that's why the last month I talked about the importance of having, a spiritual relationship, because I think sometimes when we have faith and we can really rely on a higher power, we can kind of give it to God, if you will, and say, I've done my best laid work here. Now this is your child. And now I'm giving you back the child that you gave to me, and I'm going to entrust that they're going to do okay. And so I think with this, we're inundated with all kinds of advice. Kids need discipline. Don't discipline your children. Spank your children. Don't spank your children. Let your kids have screen time. It's okay. Never let them have an iPhone at the table. They do better in public school. They do better in homeschooling. They do better in private school. You're going to get loads and loads of advice. The reality is there's the best of both worlds, right? There's good, even if you had a traumatic childhood, there's good that came out of that. Take that good, take the innate good within you, and take the knowledge and wisdom from above. Combine that together and start operating in this mode of loving care to yourself first. Take care of yourself first. And that sense of confidence and that sense of self-esteem will begin to protrude out to your children. And they will see that mom feels confident in what she's doing. Mom feels good about what she's doing. Mom can admit when she makes a mistake. Mom takes ownership and accountability, but she still keeps moving forward. And in turn, they'll begin to see you in a different light, and they'll begin to honor you as the mom that you should be honored as, okay? And I want to look at some kind of, there's lots of reasons why you might carry guilt, but I want to look at some key categories of guilt and try to I guess, blow the myths out the window of what I believe to be true and not true based on my own experiences. And I laugh with my oldest son. I'm like, take advantage of all the years of therapy that I've had. So I've had lots of years of therapy. So take advantage of what I've learned. Um, first big myth: what's better, stay-at-home mom or working mom? Well, this is probably one of the biggest mommy wars that we hear, right? Is whether or not we should stay at home with our children or should we be working. And there's moms that I've heard that I'm better when I can get out of the house and I can work and take a break from my kids. And then there's moms that would say, I would never, ever go outside this household. My kids are my number one priority, and it's my role and my job to stay there for them. So who's right, right? And I would say that there's benefits of, being a working mom. I certainly was. And I certainly did not have a choice. I was a single parent for quite some time and I needed to work. And so there was not much that I could do about that. And there are benefits as well. And so I would say kind of study of adults in 25 countries, daughters of working mothers, found that they were higher achievers, right? Naturally. I mean, you're watching your mom grow up in her career and her profession, and I'm sure it's natural to honor her in that and respect that. And so I think that's got its merits and its benefits. There's a sense of accomplishment when you see a mom that's confident. You kind of look up to her and say, wow, my mom really did achieve a lot. But guess what? The same circle of accomplishment happens for those that are staying at home. And you could see the worth of a mom staying at home, calculate 162,000 in value. I think it's probably trillions of dollars worth of value for a mom who decides to stay at home and be a full-time mom. There's so many benefits. There's this 2014 study, there were 68,000 children that were found to be at home with one of their parents. And it showed that they had much lower levels of stress in adulthood because they were raised with a mom at home. So you've got the mom that's working and daughters looking up to their moms and saying, I can be self-sufficient. I can be confident in myself. And you've got moms that stayed at home and those kids feel less stressed because they feel that sense of security. I say very, very long time. And question is not what's better for everyone, it's what's better for you and your family and your kids. So I think that's what's important. You need to choose what you think is best at that time. When I was a single parent, there was no choice. I needed to work. And not only did I work, but I worked 3 jobs. So that's what I had to do. There was no option for me not to be working, right? So you can adjust later if you need to. And there was a time when I said, okay, I've got to figure out a way to cut this from 3 jobs down to 1 and start moving up in corporate America. And that's the way that I handled it and tried to make sure what time I did have with the kids was quality time, not just about quantity of time. There's another kind of, I would say, reason that you might find that there's guilt. You've got this thing of society of the mommy wars, but also it's how we deal with anger as a mom. And maybe you're not typically an angry person, but for whatever reason, kids leave their shoes at the door and there's just this flood of rage that kind of comes up over something so minor. And I think it's okay to understand this is a very natural feeling to feel like you're at a breaking point. Maybe you feel like you're managing everything in your household. You are everything to everybody, and nobody seems to have any kind of deep appreciation for it, including your own children. That is a normal God-given feeling. Now, what you do with it is a whole nother thing. But I think when you take a second and you look at why you're getting angry, and what are the real feelings that you're feeling: inadequate, feeling like you can't get enough sleep, enough rest, that you're everything to everybody, then I think it's time to really set those emotions aside for a second. And that's hard to do, but you got to take it and take a logical approach and say, you know what? I am bloody tired. And I don't feel like I'm meeting my kids' needs. And it is creating anxiety, and I'm stressful. And I only got 10% to give right now. And if you've got a partner, I think it's even more important to communicate that to your partner. And guess what? We're empty nesters and we still have children issues that we have to deal with. And there's times when I've told Denny, hey, I only got about 5% today. That's all I got. I can't talk to the kids right now. I can't talk to employees right now. This is all I got. You got to pick up the slack. And you got to hold your partner accountable to support you in this journey of motherhood. And in the same likeness, sometimes they only have X amount. And that's where you weigh it out in communications. Why I believe in marriage meetings, because you have to say, this is where I'm at this week. This is what I've got going on this week. This is how much I'm able to give this week. And you may have some great days where you can take on a little bit more and pick up the slack, and you may have some bad days. But if you're communicating that, then that anger comes out in ways that are not good for anybody, including yourself. Because then what you do is you end up perpetuating the guilt. And so when you want to nip that anger in the bud, I would say, one, you got to get some rest, go take a nap, take some time, put the kids in the bed with you if you have to, take some time to get the rest that you need, and have very real expectations for you and for your children. It is not rational to think that you can work a 16-hour day, come home and do laundry, come home and keep the house clean, and then also making sure that every single aspect of the meals are perfect, and that there's no fast food, and that you have made sure that your mom has her birthday gift, and that you are volunteering at a community event. These are not realistic expectations. You got to calm yourself down, really look at your calendar and say, am I being realistic with myself and giving myself what I need to feel successful? You want to have you want to give yourself a grade A in all that you're doing, not B's and C's. And so if you are operating and you can give yourself a B or a C in all that you're doing, maybe you need to take some things off the table. Maybe you can't be the perfect volunteer while at the same time organic meals for your family. Maybe you have to leave volunteer work on the side and take care of the meals, or maybe you need to bring meals in so that you can do the volunteer work that you want to do. Realistic expectations. That's the key of managing mom guilt. And then, of course, you got to take time for yourself. Biggest thing that we do is we feel guilty when we take time for ourselves, because we're thinking about the laundry that needs to be done, and the birthday party we need to get ready for, etc. And that's just not realistic as well. Now, last but not least, if you're spending a lot of time really in conflict with yourself, go and get yourself professional help. And I will tell you, as of last year, I had a conflict with one of my adult children, and I went and just got a check-in with a therapist. I just wanted to make sure that I was thinking clearly, that I was making rational decisions for myself, and I was being fair to myself. And with that being said, I came out of that meeting feeling really, really good. I went for about 3 sessions, and it was just a check-in. There's nothing wrong with it. It's called getting a sanity check, making sure that you have the tools that you need to be successful as a mom. And you know what? I think it's a great example for your children, even if they're your adult children, to say, I'm humble enough to say, I don't know everything. And because I don't know everything, I'm going to go and get the tools that I need to be successful. So when you do things like that, you can set aside comparisons, put on your blinders on the left and right side of yourself, stop looking at other moms, and their perfect situations and say, you know what? I'm just going to focus on working on me. I'm going to focus on becoming a better person. And by default, that means that I will become a better mother or a better grandmother. I will become a better human being. I will become a better spouse. All of that, when you take care of yourself first, and when I say that, I don't mean selfish nonsense, right? I'm talking about really taking care of your mental health, your well-being, your spiritual well-being, your physical well-being. You become better for everybody around you, and they notice it, they see it. So let go of comparisons. Don't worry about what everybody shows you on the surface, because you are not living in their house. You have no idea what's going on in their house. I know recently, I think it was about 2 years ago, there was a woman that I really admired, and she was a great volunteer. She looked like a phenomenal mother. Her children were always dressed up to the nines. And you know what? Out in the middle of nowhere, she unfortunately took her own life. And I was shocked. People were shocked. You don't know what's going on behind the doors. So why are you comparing yourself to other women, to other moms? And women, I don't know what our problem is, but we are so hard on each other, and we got to let that go. We got to not be so accusatory or so critical or so judgmental. We're just flat out human beings having a human experience, and we're all doing the best that we can. Okay. And I would say, even for moms that were abusive to us, they didn't, something happened to them that changed them, that caused them to be what they were. Have empathy for them. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to have them in your life, but have some empathy for them. What happened to them that caused them to become the way they are? Have empathy. Have empathy for yourself and have empathy for others, right? So, I don't want to belabor this too much. Don't fall into that trap of comparing yourself or your kids to other people's kids. You know nothing about what goes on in that day to day unless you're living in their home every single day. You know nothing. So take it easy on yourself. That's the big thing. Give yourself some self-parenting, some love. And listen, if you are raising children and you've got a daughter, and someday she grows up and she calls you and says, Mom, I feel like a failure. I feel like I can't do anything right. Everything's a mess. The house is a mess. I can't get the kids' homework done. Are you going to tell your daughter you're horrible? You're a bad mom. No. So why would you do that to yourself? Self-parent. Go back to nurturing yourself. Think about what you would say to your own child and treat yourself in that same manner. Okay. Be kind to yourself. Now, I want to talk about adult children, and I want to talk about estrangement from adult children, because as we move through this, I would say seasonality of motherhood, we might find a time when our adult children become kind of estranged from us. And they may say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to talk to you right now. And it could be for many factors. It could be that they're going off to college and they're not calling you as much, and they used to call you a ton. And a lot of times that just comes with them learning to have autonomy and learning how to take the beautiful gifts that you've given them and exercise those gifts and get out there and enjoy the world. There's times when they're mad at you. They're mad at you because you weren't a good enough parent. Maybe you went through a divorce. Maybe you had issues with alcohol. Maybe you had issues with drugs. Maybe you had an affair. Maybe you weren't honest with them. There could be a myriad of issues as to why they don't want to have anything to do with you. And I want to share something with you. There was a 2020 book called Fault Lines. It's called Fractured Families and How to Mend Them. And it was a survey that showed 1 in 4 Americans being estranged from one parent, mother or father, and their kind of declaration of I'm done. Carl Andrew Pillemer, he was a professor of human development at Cornell University. He is the one that conducted this survey. And he found that there's a rising support of estrangement of children estranging from their parents. Lots of Facebook groups to support this kind of action of the child saying, I'm done with you. Now, some people believe throughout that survey and the interpretation of the survey that this increase of mental health, understanding what a toxic and abusive relationship is, narcissism, et cetera, has made us more aware of maybe what we went through, maybe who our parents really were. And then we got to make a decision. Are we going to stay in that relationship or out of that relationship? He also found that estrangement came from political differences. COVID was a very big fine line, vax, not vax, that kind of thing. That was a dividing factor in families as well. But there is a Western trend of children saying, I'm done. I don't want to have a relationship with you. And these are some of the four things. You weren't a good enough parent. You still treat me like a child. We don't have the same values, like political, medical, that kind of thing. And you're a toxic person. And out of that survey, there's been this kind of rise of individualism. And that rise of individualism has really started to infiltrate society and tell the children, you know, you don't really need your parents. You don't need them. You don't need them to function in life. And so I'm going a little bit down a avenue that's a little bit dark, but I want you to understand a little bit about when you are faced with estrangement. Yes, there is a little bit of accountability on both sides of the aisle here of the relationship, not just on the parent. Okay. So this impact of estrangement that came out of the survey showed that children who make the decision to be estranged from their parents sometimes have a sense of high stress levels, high anxiety. They don't have that loving support from the family. So they do feel alone. And there is no substitute for another human being that's not their blood to really interact with them. And I'm not saying that their decision to be estranged from their parent is the wrong decision. I am just saying that they feel a sense of anxiety, a sense of not being supported in this big world that we're in because they don't have that family support. And so let's just talk about what that means for us as parents dealing with estranged adult children. I think the one thing that we need to realize as parents is that we do have society norms that are working against us because there's a sense of empowerment. I can do it on my own. I don't need my parents. They're toxic. They're narcissists. And I will not forgive. And I want to teach you some strategies that I've had to learn through my own journey of dealing with estranged adult children. So the one thing is that you really have to look at your child where they're at right now and not where you think they should be based on their age or where they're at in life right now. And you got to try to manage your anxiety as a parent by looking at them, not necessarily as your child or that mother connection that we have, that intuitive connection that we have, but looking at them as their own individual. And I would say that if they have legitimate complaints about your parenting, like my children had legitimate complaints about my parenting and some of the things that happened. And some of the things and decisions that I made came from my own upbringing. I came out of it very broken, and I've been very open about that. I came out broken, so I did things because I was broken, and then I allowed people to take advantage of me because I was broken. And it wasn't until my 40s that I connected all the dots and started getting the help that I needed. So there was legitimate issues that needed to be addressed. And I think what's important though, is rather than blame yourself or blame your child and say, how could you be estranged from me? Don't you know what I had to go through to raise you, or what I came out of my own childhood? You have to understand this is their journey. And just like you had to heal from your own pain of your parents, they have to heal from their own pain and their own issues. And they have to go through their own journey and get the help that they need in order to heal from those wounds before possibly a reconciliation can happen. And so there is this theory called the attribution theory and estrangement and how it ties together. And I think this is something that I really took with me and hold with me. And this is looking and changing the narrative. I hate using that term, but changing the narrative. And let me give you an example. If I notice that you are driving over the speed limit, I might just think that you're a fast driver, right? If I am driving over the speed limit, it might be because I'm in a hurry, right? So to me, my speeding is an aspect of what my present circumstances are. I'm running late to a meeting. I've got to get there, so I'm speeding. Whereas I might look at you and just say, that's a natural part of your personality. You're just a fast car driver, right? You're not safe, that kind of thing. So it's the same truth with exceptional human behavior, even when it's negative. If you criticize me, then I assume you're doing it because you're a very critical person. If I criticize you, it's because I see an opportunity for improvement, right? There's a little bit of a disconnect. And so what you have to do is you have to begin to separate who you really are from bad behavior. That's not who you were. Who you are. You might have acted out. Maybe you slapped your child, right? Maybe you were once an alcoholic. Maybe you were once doing drugs. Maybe you once had an affair. That's a behavior. That's not who you really are. And if you've gone through therapy and you've gotten help and you don't understand why your kids cannot forgive you now and why they can't just move on, it's probably because they can't separate the behavior with who you really are. They really connect your behavior and say, that's who she is. And therefore, I can't have anything to do with her, or I can't forgive right now. And what's important for you to not do is not get so upset with your child pulling away that you become a parent in crisis. You have to understand that they need time to heal. They need time to reflect. And they need time to say, that's not, my mom did some bad things, but that's not who she really is at her deep core. And when we as a parent have gone through our own rejection or abandonment as a child, and then we end up having children, and we don't really know what love is until we have a child. There's times when we go into crisis when our children pull away because we feel vulnerable, we feel distressed. Maybe that child was filling a need that we never had before. And I know there was a time when I was going through my divorce previously and went through a period of time where the kids and I just weren't engaged on many, many levels of reasons. And they're not bad for not engaging. There was good reason for them not to engage. But boy, did it break me. Boy, did I not do well with not having my children talk to me, because we were a team. We were together through thick and thin, through so many things. And I really, really felt disconnected because I didn't feel whole inside. So when you begin to work on yourself and feel whole, you can separate your role as a mother with their role as an adult, and the relationship vertically that's connected will always be there, because as moms, we always love our children, but you can separate the two and you can see yourself clearly, you can see them clearly, and you can love them from a distance while they go through this journey of healing. Okay. And that's why it's important to change the language. These were my behaviors. This is not who I am. And a lot of times that disconnect of these were my behaviors, this is not who I am, comes with time because you have to earn that trust back. So it's important to disconnect. I did this because, and claim responsibility for your words and your actions. Acknowledge their feelings, even if you don't agree with them, or even if you think that their feelings are not exactly correct based on your perception of what happened. And I'll give you a little quote. This is really good. Here's a quote of an example of what you could say. I've criticized you on many occasions. I regret it deeply. You never deserved to be criticized. My behavior was a reflection of my fear that maybe you weren't going to succeed at the level that I thought you could succeed. But you're doing just fine. And I don't have to criticize your choices or your actions, especially now that I realize it wasn't really helpful, right? So I've committed to changing my behavior and I hope we can start again. Now, isn't that just, kind of Alice in Wonderland, hoping and praying that you could say something like that and they'll fall back in and say, Mom, I love you. It may take some time. It may take time through really good actions, and actions meaning just working on yourself and living your best authentic life. And I think you've got to lower your emotional reactions to their behavior. So if I hate you, I'll never forgive you. There are no absolutes in this world. Let that go. I know how you feel. I understand how you feel. I'm sorry for your feelings. I take inventory of my behavior. And this is what I've done to work on it. And I really am sorry. And I hope that you will forgive me. And then show consistent effort. And if you have to, get out there and get some professional help, and don't be ashamed to do so as well. And I think now more than ever, it's time for us to wake up as parents that are dealing with estranged adult children and understand that we have a little bit of a battle going on here. We've got the society saying to adult children, they're toxic, they're narcissists. That's it, no forgiveness. There seems to, because there's not, in my opinion, because there's not a spiritual baseline for a lot of people in this world, they don't have any faith or any trust in something larger than themselves to allow for that healing to happen, for that bridge to be built. It's just an automatic anger of cutting you off. And what you have to do is wake up and realize we have a few things working against us, but nothing is absolute in this world. And you got to give yourself permission to take breaks from situations that bring on that pain. You are not there to be abused. You are not there to be punished for the rest of your life for the mistakes that you've made. And there are consequences to those mistakes. Those consequences could mean that your child doesn't talk to you again. That it could be that, but that doesn't change who you are and the fact that you will always love that child from afar. And then you've got to kind of trust something higher than yourselves to bring that reconciliation to a close. It may not happen. They may not come back. That's something you have to acknowledge and you have to wake up to. But what are you going to do in the meantime? Are you going to wallow in defeat? Are you going to wallow in pain? Are you going to abuse yourself for the rest of your life? Do you think that really sets precedence? And what happens when they have children? Maybe they might look and say, I don't understand why you're not talking to grandma. What if you are living your best life, a real, authentic life? So I want to encourage you to make a list of the things that you want to try or do, break out of that routine of grief, go on a quest for wondering, and leave a legacy. Leave a legacy in your own right. It's not time for us to fight this culture war of, cancel culture and drawing lines in the sand politically and that kind of thing. We need to lead by example. And I love what I talked about before, which is this, what they call in the Bible, the fruits of the Holy Spirit. But even if you are not spiritual, it relates. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. These are beautiful traits to build from within and expose out. Journal, write those stories. You know, you may pass away and those journals will be left there for that child to see. Maybe they'll see the evolution. Maybe it will help them in their healing process. You never know. You never know. But leave the door open always, but without expectation. And I will say that when an estranged child calls you after a long period of time, when there's been no contact, it's very easy to have a rush of emotion. You might feel elated. And I caution you, take the emotions and even them out. Don't get too excited. Don't get too fearful. Go in with no expectation. Over the years that have passed, you might feel angry, like, oh, now you're showing up. Now you want to talk to me. Where were you when? How come you couldn't forgive? You might be worried that you're going to get hurt again. You might be worried that you're going to be able to see your grandchildren, then not see your grandchildren. So you have to go in with even-keeled emotions without expectation one way or the other. But obviously, as moms, we don't ever want to close that door. Again, if your child is a drug addict and is abusive and those kinds of things, obviously there are exceptions to all of those rules in terms of keeping the doors closed. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about maybe the kid that got mad at you because you voted the wrong way, right? And now they want to come in, or the kid that said, you know, you can't ever see your grandkids because of the way you were and blah, 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 blah. I'm talking about those kinds of situations, right? I think it's really important to go in, open that door up slowly, cautiously, and don't get too excited one way or the other, but don't get so scared that you keep that door closed, because you need to heal too. And that reconciliation can be a beautiful thing and such a great example, especially for our grandchildren. We have to remain steady so we can break the generational cycles of bad family relationships, because good family relationships are the priority here, right? They build for healthy adults, right? And then if you're envious of others and their good relationships with their adult children, take a deep breath. Forgive yourself if you were the cause for this estrangement, right? It's a very human emotion to have envy. Don't be negative and judging yourself if you have envy, but also at the same time, bless them and move on. I'm happy for them. I'm happy for you, my girlfriend, that you've got a great relationship. That is so good. I'm so happy for you. And begin to walk in a sense of well-being and confidence, right? And remember, thoughts create actions, and then actions create consequences. So you got to control your thoughts so that you have good consequences coming back to you. You don't want that negativity out there. And when guilt comes around, I want you to take a moment to embrace your guilt with curiosity. Why am I feeling guilty right now? Sit with those feelings for a minute, and it's highly uncomfortable, but sit with them for a minute and say, why do I feel bad right now? What is it I wish for? And it's okay to shed a tear. It's okay to cry it out. It's just okay. Cry it out if you have to. And then sit and listen and to your own self and say, why do I feel bad right now? And then acknowledge it, honor it, and do something about it, and then get up and keep going. Okay? It's okay. I think in this world of social media, of course, right? But in motherhood, for example, this need for perfection is so strong that we feel like we've got to be happy all the time, or we got to be definitive and say, you know what, they're not talking to me. That's it. They're out of my life. There are no absolutes in this world, right? We never know when the rain's coming, when it's not coming. We never know anything. All we can do is control this present moment. And in this present moment, if you feel bad, figure out why and address it and take action on it one way or the other. And sometimes it might mean I just got to go sit by the pool and take this in. I'm not feeling good right now. And that's okay. Well, guys, I hope this has been helpful. I can tell you in my journey of having 5 adult children, and some married, some not, some talking to me every single day, some not. It is no perfect role or life to live, right? But I can tell you one thing's for sure. Every day I'm improving. Every day I'm getting better. Every day I'm doing my best to share what I know with others to help them fast track through their issues. And that's really all we can do. It's not that complicated. What's complicated is what we make it to be, right? When we overemphasize our feelings and our emotions. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope that you will leave me a Facebook review or a Google review, sign up for our newsletter. And again, go and follow us on YouTube or Rumble, the channel of your choice. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and we're on Pinterest and LinkedIn as well. Be sure to follow us too as well. And take it easy, mama. Let go of that mama guilt. Okay. Let it go. Enjoy this time with your children. You guys have a fantastic weekend. I appreciate each and every one of you taking some time with me this morning, and be blessed. Okay. Thank you guys.